In today's video, we'll discuss SGA and how he's played like a superstar this season. So without further ado, let's get into it. The Oklahoma City Thunder are currently in the middle to bottom tier of the Western Conference, but it's still early on in the season, and the conference is pretty competitive for the most part. So they aren't as bad as it appears. They're 9th in win percentage, 9th in points per game, 20th in field goal percentage, 17th in three-point percentage, 10th in free throw percentage, 8th in rebounding, 5th in steals, and 5th in blocks while having the 10th ranked defense. So the improvement on the defensive end is what gets things started. Young players will develop offensively as they get more comfortable on the NBA level. And with two highly unselfish guards leading the way, we wouldn't worry too much about that. What always seemed to do in the Thunder in previous seasons was their inability to get stops. Now that they're getting those stops, everything seems different, and they're beginning to look like an actual basketball team. On offense, they're led by 24-year-old Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is absolutely balling out this season. But just how and why is he playing so well? To answer that question, let's take a deep dive into his stats, numbers, and game, starting with his finishing at the rim. SGA is number 1 in the NBA in drives per game with 24.1. And he's also number 1 in driving field goal percentage, finishing 51% on 11 attempts per game. But his inside dominance doesn't just stop there, because he's 7th in the NBA in shots within 5 feet from the basket, shooting 59% on 7.8 attempts per game. But how in the world is a 6'5", 195-pound guard playing so well amongst the trees? For one, he has incredible touch around the rim. He's got this really unorthodox way of finishing at the basket. Instead of driving to the rim and jumping high and exploding to the rim like Ja Morant or Russell Westbrook, SGA loves to stay lower on the ground and sort of fling or toss the ball in the hoop. And this is just so unbelievably hard to stop as a defender, because this makes his release not only lightning quick, but also very hard to anticipate. And as a defender, especially rim protectors, you block shots on purely timing and anticipation skills. So if your timing's thrown off, it's almost literally impossible to block a shot, unless you get lucky. And what makes this even more effective is SGA often jumps off the same foot as his finishing hand, which makes the release not only super quick, but it shields the ball away from the defender as well. And if you go for the block, you're most likely going to be called on a foul. And that's the exact reason why he's averaging a crazy 10 free throws per game right now. So unless you're Robert Williams, Anthony Davis, Jaren Jackson Jr., or Rudy Gobert with a massive wingspan, you're better off just hoping he misses. But another way he uses his supreme touch is by using and shooting the floater. He often drives to the rim, gives his defender a little bump, which freezes his defender up for a split second, and then he just simply rises over him with the floater. And let's not forget, SGA does have a long 6'5", 6'6" body frame, so it's a lot easier for a player like him to use this effectively. But the major key to his ability to finish and drive at a high level is his ability to initiate contact. And while he doesn't appear to be a strong guard, he plays extremely physical, and he really looks for the contact. And in today's NBA, that can be very stressful on a defender because, as you know, NBA referees are not hesitant to blow their whistle, and even the slightest bit of contact can warrant a foul. So when you've got a thin, very long, wiry player trying to play bully ball with you, it sort of leaves the defender in a tough situation. And dominating inside as a guard is not as easy as it may sound, because not only are you risking injury, but coaches wouldn't normally recommend their guards constantly taking contested shots in the paint, unless you're SGA, of course. And not only does he have the touch to do this, but he's one of the best acrobatic finishers in the league. He can contort his body in midair and make adjustments while being contested at the hoop. And another thing he does is fully extending his arm with finishing layups, and this is something LeBron James does as well. Fully extending your arm on layups gives you a much higher chance of finishing and leaves minimal room for error. But now let's move on to another part of his game, the mid-range. SGA is ranked 18th in the league in shots within 15 to 19 feet, which is the mid-range, of course. He's shooting 38% on 2.2 attempts per game, and he's even 3rd in the NBA behind Giannis and Joel Embiid in two-pointer field goals, which is beyond incredible to say the least. As we mentioned, he's excellent at getting inside the lane whenever he wants, and the same thing goes for the mid-range. With him being a tall and smart point guard, he can easily rise over other guards. And although he isn't your traditional mid-range jump shooter like Devin Booker or DeMar DeRozan, he can still give you buckets just as well as those guys in the mid-range when he's getting hot. And he's not just a simple downhill driver by any means, because SGA has borderline elite handles, and he can cook you every single possession if he wants to. He's very crafty, and he loves hesitation moves, and he can chain together dribble combinations just as good as anyone in the NBA. And this is what allows him to get inside at will, because if you play up and close against him, he has the craftiness and speed to blow by you. And if you play off of him, he can still get into the lane at will because he's such a good ball handler, and he's mastered the ability to accelerate and decelerate. But now let's keep moving back from the rim and talk about his three-point shooting, where he's shooting 34.8% on 2.2 attempts per game. He doesn't really rely heavily on his three-point shooting like Trae Young, Damian Lillard, or Stephen Curry. He's just always looking to get downhill somehow. Don't get us wrong though, he can stroke the three ball, and he shot 41% from three just a couple of seasons ago. But shooting the three isn't really his forte, and he just came off the worst shooting year of his career last season. But nonetheless, he's far from a bad shooter, so leaving him open from beyond the arc will always be a bad idea. Now let's focus on his playmaking. He's averaging 5.5 assists per game on the season, and he's really just a great passer and decision maker overall. And he really doesn't need to take over the playmaking role as much with Josh Giddey at his side. In fact, Josh Giddey averages more touches than SGA, and still averages around the same amount of assists. And the fact that he's such a high volume, high efficiency driver sets up even more and better passing opportunities. Because as a defense, you have to collapse when he's driving to the rim. And when you do, SGA has no problem whatsoever passing it out to a shooter, or throwing a short dump-off pass to a center or cutter. And at his height, he can see over guards and make the right pass 95% of the time. So when he drives, all you can do is hope he somehow loses the ball or takes a dumb shot or makes a lousy pass, which is something that doesn't happen very often. But his improvements on the defensive side of the ball is what will likely elevate him to superstar status. Even his head coach Mark Daigneault commented on it. Quote, "His length and disruption have been huge for us in terms of deflections and forcing turnovers." And he is 100% right, because SGA is averaging 1.7 steals per game, which ranks him 7th in the NBA. And not only that, but he's averaging 2.4 steals per game over his last 7 games, and he's tied for 8th in deflections per game. OKC forward Kenrich Williams said it was clear in scrimmages before the season even started that SGA had returned a different kind of defender. Quote, "You could see he's taken pride in that side of the ball," he said. "It's carrying over to the games." Dort used the same phrasing. Quote, "He's starting to take a lot of pride in it," and added that Shai's got great hands. He knows where to be, and he's getting way better. He then added, "I'm always challenging to get a block and 2 steals a game." And Gilgeous-Alexander doesn't flinch. Dude thinks he can do anything. He literally thinks he can do anything. So yeah, having that mentality can definitely make you a better defender. And what's even better is his teammates are encouraging him to play better defense. We just wish Trae Young had teammates like that. But Gilgeous-Alexander said that his development on defense is partially the result of improved conditioning and training. He's been better at navigating and fighting over and around screens and making the multiple effort plays that every basketball coach loves. His length allows him to cover ground the way few guards can. So he's always had occasional highlights. Now they're just happening far more often, with fewer errors of inattention in between them. Every game, he does something great on the defensive end, whether it's blocking a three-pointer, stuffing a 7-footer at the rim, or sticking his hands in a passing lane at the exact right time. All in all, he has been amazing this season. And as of right now, he's averaging 30 points, 5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 1.7 steals, and 1.1 blocks per game. And not to mention, he's one of the best free throw shooters in the NBA, shooting 90% on 10 attempts per game. He's just simply one of the most complete players in the NBA. And not only does he deserve the Most Improved Player of the Year award, but if the Thunder can continue to play well, we think he can possibly start moving up that MVP ladder. But of course, we want to know what you think. Is SGA MVP worthy? Let us know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.